In the last video, we used a simple pattern to generate a major key. Starting with the note whose key we wanted to generate, we got 7 notes that, after a quick reorganization, turned into a familiar sounding scale. This is not the usual method of building a scale, but it has this advantage. It makes it easy to spot some important patterns and to make additional deductions. For instance, our first pattern put our starting note in the middle, like a pivot point. It's built like a seesaw. So let's treat it like a seesaw. Start in the middle where it balances and play C. Leap to the top to F, then leap to the bottom to G. Then return to the middle to C, the central balance. You can reverse this pattern too. Start on C, but leap to the bottom, then leap to the top. End in the middle. Okay, neither of those probably sounded great. But we're not at the point of sounding great, not yet. We're still at the stage of finding patterns, and though it's not apparent yet, we have found one. We found the 3 most important notes in the scale, the ones that everything else is going to be built on. Let me emphasize that again. This simple pattern, applied twice to a keyboard, has generated a scale, and also given us a very easy way to find the 3 most important notes in the scale. They are, conveniently, the middle note and the 2 notes at the end of the scale form we generated. So if you remember this one pattern and how to apply it, you'll be able to deduce facts that otherwise can be fairly tedious to memorize. But back to our C major scale. From this point on, we're going to be working inside of a key, and I want to emphasize that. The rules to come only apply to a major key and the notes of its scale. These are not rules about the piano keyboard or the complete set of 12 tones. Because we are going to be working exclusively inside of a major key, we can get rid of all the notes that are not part of its scale. So if we're working in C major, we can get rid of the black keys and deal exclusively with the white keys. That gives us a keyboard that looks like this. Of course, without the black keys to guide us, we'll have to label the keys. If we are working in C major, we'll label them like this. And from this point on, we'll be talking about C major, though everything I will say can be generalized to the other major keys. Let's begin. Start with C. Count up 4 spaces. You will arrive at G. Play C and G together. They make a nice sound. No surprise there. C and G, I told you, are 2 of the important tones in C major. They ought to sound good together. Go back to C, but this time count down 4 spaces. You will arrive at F. Play C and F together. Again, they make a nice sound, and again it's no surprise, since C and F are the other pair of important tones in C major. Back to C and G played together. That's a pretty sound, but it's also hollow and weak, like an empty shoebox. It might get crushed. To brace it, add the note halfway between, giving us C, E, G. That's a much more solid sound. Do the same with F and C, adding A, the note halfway between. It sounds much the same. We now have 2 chords, one built with C at the bottom and one with F at the bottom. Those are 2 of our 3 important tones. For symmetry, do the same thing with our 3rd important tone, G. From G, count up 4 spaces to D and add the note halfway between, B. That's another happy, solid sound. These chords we just made are going to be our primary chords, our main chords, the important chords, the chords at the top of the heap. You know, primary. Think of them as the alpha jocks. If the key of C major was a high school, then these 3 chords would be the popular guys, the ones with the cool cars and the hot girlfriends. When you're making music in the key of C major, these 3 chords dominate the field. Now, if we can build chords on C and F and G, can we build chords on the other notes? Of course. We use exactly the same procedure. Start on D. Count up 4 spaces to A. Fill it in with the note in the middle, which is F. You get DFA. Do the same thing with E, and you get EGB. With A, you get ACE. With B, you get BDF. It's important to note that this is how you construct chords within a key. You only use the 7 notes that are part of your scale, both to build and to count. The other 5 notes on the keyboard, we threw them away. They're not there anymore. You can't use them to count up from one note to another inside of a key because they do not exist inside the key you're working in. So if you're in C major, there are no black keys. You will screw up if you try using black keys to construct chords, and you will totally screw yourself up if you try counting black keys to construct them. In your scale, start with a note. Skip 2. Skip 2 again. There's your chord, no matter what note you start with. Now, the new chords that we made sound much more somber than the ones we built on C and on F and on G. The ones on C and F and G are called major chords. The ones on D and E and A are called minor chords. If we're going to define the difference between a major chord and a minor chord, we would need the black keys. But we don't need to define them in order to construct them. And the fact that we can construct these minor chords in the key of C major means that these minor chords belong to the key of C major, just as much as the major chords belong to it. So, the key of C major contains 3 major chords, built on C, F, and G, and 3 minor chords, built on D, E, and A. It also contains a weird chord, the one built on B. We'll ignore that one for now because, well, it's weird. When playing in the key of C major, you can use any of these chords, even the weird one. But don't use the weird one unless you know the rules for handling it, which are kind of an advanced topic. Musicians use all of them all the time, and are able to use them without once leaving the key of C major. Still, sometimes you'll play one of these chords and it will not sound good. Why is that? That'll be the subject of the next video.